So, Connect 2023 is Meta's annual everything conference. It's where they talk about a lot of their B2C as well as B2B investments, new technology, trends in the industry, and where Meta plays inside of all of that. We were lucky enough to get a chance to attend that in person, which was quite an exclusive event. I'm going to say less than 1,000 people that were by invite only. So quite fortunate and lucky to see Mark Zuckerberg, Boz, and team present in person what their vision is for the next year and coming years. Initial takeaways, because they made a number of announcements around both mixed reality, around artificial intelligence, as well as their Ray-Ban glasses, their smart glasses, which is a fusion, if you will, leveraging technology from both AR, VR, as well as AI. So I think in general, there's a number of takeaways. So let's start first, perhaps on the MR side. Really interesting, their developments inside of Quest 3. And while I wouldn't say from a design perspective, from a principles perspective, it's very similar look and feel as the previous generations, but they've made a number of, I'll call it subtle changes that actually have a significant change in terms of how you interact with the devices. First and foremost has the cameras on the lens itself. And I actually think as much as that might sound a small change, it actually makes a very large usability changes. When you put the devices on, right away, you get a picture of your surroundings. So you're actually not immersed into another reality. You're still in your own reality when you put your devices on. You get to choose when you go into some form of an augmented or mixed or virtual reality experience, which I actually think that makes it much more inviting, puts the user in control of what their environment is going to be like. And I actually think it's going to really help from an adoption perspective. It makes it much easier for consumers and people to just put it on and feel a lot more intuitive over what to do next. And also allows them to work and interface with people that might be supporting them on their first kind of journey inside of MR. So I think that's great. So I think it's going to have a large impact when it comes to usability, a large impact when it comes to being ready. It actually felt ready, so to speak. And as I forecast into, what that's going to be, of course, there's a whole bunch of other speed and feeds types of upgrades that were done. And one of those is graphics performance, which as well, I think, from an immersive perspective, as well as from a work context perspective, like higher pixel resolution, those types of things will help with specific use cases, let's call it design or virtual twins, for example. Those two benefit greatly from increased pixel density, higher resolution imagery. And so I think, Quest 3 is going to make a big difference from an adoption perspective and from being tech ready to support more use cases. From an AI perspective, Meta's work in that space, I think, is actually largely unheralded. Like we hear a lot of, I think we've been hearing more news lately around Bard and Google, but we haven't been hearing enough about Meta and Llama, which is interesting because when we think about it, there's really only three true players from an LLM perspective, a large language model. And that's Google, Meta, and Microsoft. Microsoft being OpenAI/ChatGPT. So Meta's unveiled a number of things, which I actually think is going to push the whole industry forward from an AI perspective around some of the tools that they're releasing. Unsurprisingly, they released, for example, something called Code Llama, which is a LLM that builds on the Llama platform and leverages parameters that are specifically to assist developers, code, comment, debug, and really just help support development use cases in particular. So it's much more efficient, much more streamlined. If you're going to give these models to a developer to assist in coding, Code Llama, for example, really is that conduit. And what that does is it actually helps, I think, in the understanding of how would we build specific LLM models or specific models that are bespoke to a use case in a business. Like what would a customer success trained large language model act, right? Would it help provide context to employees around the mental state of the person that you're speaking to? Would it help provide prompts or cues into how to be more empathetic or how to be more engaging. A lot of possibilities when you create very fit for fact, fit for form, fit for use AI assistants, so to speak. And Meta really demonstrated some of the power of that with the examples that they gave. And then when they talked about their Ray-Ban glasses, it was really amazing because it began the convergence of those two things. So the glasses are amazing tools because, and I think Mark mentioned this, he said that it's really the natural factor that will allow AI to see what and hear what you hear. So it's the real first ability for AI to act as you or think like you. And I don't mean like think like you as replace you, but be able to assist you based on contextually what's going on around you. So you have the ability to wear glasses, for example, and Mark was talking about being able to look at a building, let's call it the CN Tower, and ask the glasses, hey, what is this building? And the glasses, because it can see what you hear, it's going to be contextually aware of what you're looking at, and then be able to provide you feedback going, oh, that's the CN Tower. It's built in 1970, whatever. It's this tall. Here's some interesting facts about it. That's quite powerful when you think about that's where the future is going. A form factor that's comfortable, but the power of leveraging AI and the other capabilities around mixed reality and computer vision, it's really exciting. And I think that they did a great job of describing the intersection of those technologies and the impact it's going to have on not just our personal life, but our business life as well.
And for the next question, I will ask about Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses. Now, the glasses mix everyday life with augmented reality. How do you think companies will handle their employees being able to access AR all the time?
We've described a vision, I think, of when we are able to walk into a meeting room and some of us are physically present and some of us are virtually present. And we can all sit around a table, and even though there might be some empty chairs, those chairs are actually represent team members that are digitally present. And we've been painted this picture where we can put on our VR headsets and we can interact with people that are in the room with us, quote unquote, both physically and digitally. And I think that's been a very hard to imagine and hard to visualize because it's just it feels so far off distance in the future. But I think the Ray-Ban glasses really help show for the first time that, hey, maybe that's not that far away. It's not crazy to think where I'd be wearing a pair of glasses that maybe are, what the word is when it's the UV shade come on when it goes out in the sun, and when it goes inside, it comes into a transparent glass. I think that capability, for example, combined with all of the tech that's in AR glasses, is going to allow people to be in a room and truly have that promised hybrid experience that's going to allow people to be remote and feel like they're in the room, but still do things like work on a whiteboard. That's one of those experiences that really, no matter what, just doesn't transfer very well. And I think the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses is the window into what that's going to look like. How will companies handle their employees accessing that all the time? I think it's still too early to tell. We could have made the same argument 10, 15 years ago around what's it going to be like when employees have a computer all the time, or what's it going to be like when employees have a smartphone all the time. So I think in the end, the outcome will be positive. Of course, we're going to have checks and balances, things like work-life balance. Like if it's bad now where people are attached to their smartphones when they're at home, how bad will it be when, especially for some, their prescription eyewear is going to be their phone and that they never take it off. So yeah, we still need to figure out what the impact of that's going to be. But I think the net impact, assuming we get that right, will be very positive.
And how might training for new employees change with Quest 3 and Ray-Ban glasses?
One of the prominent use cases for AR, VR is employee onboarding. And a large component of employee onboarding is training, right? It's training or educating that new employee on how to do the role. It's educating the employee on what the company means, what values it supports, how it operates, procedures and policies to follow, where to find information, who do they work with, where do those people sit. All of that is information that a new employee needs to digest and learn. And the faster they're able to do that, the more productive they will be quicker. And so I think AR as well as AI will be able to really accelerate that. So I'm envisioning, right, being able to have your glasses on, your smart glasses, and asking your company assistant where to find specific information. And it's able to tell you either A, where it is, or B, just answer your question right away, right? They're able to just give you the information you need at the press of a button on your glasses. So I think it is going to change training. It's also going to change what people train. So do we now need to train people on the actual knowledge itself? Or are we going to have to train them on where to find the knowledge or how to ask for the knowledge? And so it's less about where to go and more about how to ask that becomes valuable. So there's a lot of interesting thinking exercises over what it's going to mean to not just trading, onboarding, and all sorts of other different use cases.
And now shifting gears, there's a lot of chatter about the metaverse at Meta Connect. What do you think companies can do with it?
I think the metaverse is still very early. It's very early in its life cycle, and I'm not sure that companies have really understood how to best take advantage of it. But there's no change, I would say, in terms of how companies can interact with the metaverse. The thinking is still predominantly the same in that there's not going to be one metaverse. There's going to be multiple metaverses that consumers or people will have the opportunity to choose what and when and how to interact with those different types of metaverses. And some of those metaverses are experiences that already exist, like games. Jumping into Fortnite, you could argue, is akin to a metaverse experience now where you're wrapped into the virtual reality that is Fortnite, especially if you did that in VR. And you might jump out of that and go shopping at a mall that also has multiple mini metaverses in it, right? So let's say you're going to go to the Gap store, right? That's in the mall. And so the mall might be a curated metaverse experience. And inside of that metaverse, it's a little mini metaverse, which is, I'm going to go shopping at the Gap. And the Gap is going to own the look and the feel and the experience of their store inside of the mall, inside of a shopping metaverse. So still too soon. And I think what's going to help with that is what we've been talking about. For example, the Ray-Bans and the miniaturization and the more accessible the tech is, it's going to accelerate people's adoption and thinking around the metaverse. Because right now, I think there's just not enough of a market yet to push some of these large organizations to create presence in these areas.
So with all this fancy new hardware from Meta, are companies ready to bring them into daily work? How can LineZero help with this? After hearing everything from Meta Connect 2023, how do you think it will shape our work future? How can businesses get ready for this change? How is LineZero planning to help companies get the most out of these new tech toys and transition smoothly into this new digital age?
So I think, broadly speaking, that to sum this up, if you will, this tech is ready now, and companies would get value from deploying this immediately, with an asterisk. And that asterisk being, it's really ready and mature for very specific use cases. For example, L&D, learning and development, training, DEI initiatives, design. These types of use cases are very mature. There's a rich ecosystem of applications that can be leveraged to help with training initiatives, to help with DEI initiatives, to help with design and architecture. All of these things are very mature, and I would say are ready to contribute value immediately for companies, and should those be desired use cases. For some other use cases, let's call it collaboration or communication, it's still, I think, trying to figure itself out. For example, communication, that honestly works better when anybody can communicate with anyone, regardless of what device they're on, right? Which would mean you'd almost need to go wall to wall for a mixed reality deployment. And I don't think we're there yet. Certain use cases like communication, I think it'll be some time before we see companies adopt this technology for that purpose. But any company where training is a priority, any company with DEI is a priority, any company with architecture, design, there's quite a few use cases that are mature. Those businesses that either have value in that or are in those industries should be looking at this immediately.
And with the last question, with all this AR, VR, and AI stuff, how can companies make sure they're keeping their data safe and private?
Yeah, it's privacy is always a tough one because it's almost like making up the rules as we go. And there's some really smart people that are paying a lot of attention to this. Thankfully and unthankfully, right? Thankfully, a lot of this design work is happening in the open, so to speak, right? People can go online and go to ChatGPT or go to Bard or go to Llama and use this stuff. And for whatever reason, a lot of people have this inclination where they want to press the limits. And so not that they're mean by in normal, but they want to see what the AI is going to let them do. And so they do things that they know they shouldn't or they know they wouldn't. And so and that leads to, for example, reading articles about how this AI was racist, or this AI was biased, or this AI gave the wrong information. And all of that is ultimately really just going to help because all of this stuff is being done in the open. It's helping these organizations figure out how to better train the data, how to better protect the information that sits there. And I think the tech itself and the industry itself is moving in the right direction from that perspective. And then on top of that, what would companies need to do to layer on their specific stuff? It's applying their policies, building policies that are specific to their organization, right? And also their use cases. For example, if a company is going to ask that employees create an avatar, a digital avatar of themselves, or is that going to be an avatar based off of a picture, i.e. very lifelike and real? Or is that avatar going to be something an employee can choose and they might not even need to be a person, so to speak? But in the instance when the company is going to request that it's a digital avatar, a version of themselves, well, what happens to that information if the employee leaves, right? Does that avatar get deleted? Does the employee get to take it with them? These are the types of things that I'm not sure have very well thought out answers right now. And so this is the type of things that companies should think about as they're looking to adopt this technology over what would we do, what's important for us, and how do we apply these policies to our business.
Thank you so much.